Welcome to this somatic self-care video. Today's video is going to explore embodiment and inhabiting different parts of the physical body, both with our presence but also with our movement and sending energy there with the breath. There's various ways that we can cultivate embodiment in different places. And on top of embodiment itself, also looking at the different qualities of being, the different experience that we have mentally, emotionally, and or otherwise in our soma when we visit different places of the body. And there's an aspect of this which for me feels like awakening the intelligence of different body parts. For example, moving the consciousness into the heart space is known to increase coherence in the nervous system, in the biofield of the heart, because the heart does produce an electromagnetic field. So there's actually studies on how presencing towards the physical location of the heart and the chest has physiological effects, as well as energetic, and they ripple out into how we feel and how we relate with ourselves and others. And what I'd like to put forward is that there's that potential in any part of the body. I've also read a lot about sending awareness to different parts of the body, awareness to sensation being something that supports the parasympathetic nervous system response. So by bringing awareness to sensation, we can actually bring ourselves into a space of rest and digest, a space of calm. Obviously, this is going to be very contextual, particularly if we have challenging relationships with different sensations, such as symptoms or anxiety or trauma responses. So that's another conversation. Other approaches and techniques will apply to that. But essentially, the exploration today is curiosity around what happens when I bring my awareness and my life energy into different spaces. Who do I become energetically, mentally, physically, emotionally, when I operate from different parts of my being? And the way we're going to start this is in a seated position. So get comfortable, whatever that means for you. Set yourself up with whatever props you might need to be comfortable for about 5 minutes. And when you've found a comfortable seat, the invitation is to either lower the eyes, or you can close the eyelids, closing one of the doorways of the senses to the external world, or at least pulling down the shutters a little bit if you're looking down towards the floor. And this action, because it is a physical action, closing the eyes, is one way that we can be supported to come inwards. When the senses are not so consumed with digesting the stimuli of the external world, perhaps we can attune more towards the sensations of the inner world. And another way that we can support this process is by using the energy of the eyes to move inwards. This may manifest as a physical movement of the eyeballs, turning them perhaps towards the nose or somewhere closer towards the inner body. But it may also simply be intention. The eyes have a very strong energy. I like to think of them as the beam or the ray of a lighthouse. Wherever the eyes go, our mind tends to go. So if we can somehow bring the energy of the eyes inwards, perhaps focusing on the heart or the nose, somewhere comfortable that doesn't cause any strain. That is a second layer of coming inwards that we are making happen through simple acts in the physical body, the lowering of the eyelids and the turning inwards of the eye energy. From here, I ask us all Where is your consciousness located right now? If you could give it a region in the physical body, where would you place it? And there's no right or wrong answer. But I'm going to work with a generalization so that this practice can be insightful and useful to a broad amount of people. But I'm going to put forward a suggestion that as a society we're very top heavy, meaning that a lot of our energy is up the top, in the head, perhaps the top of the chest. And we can even see this when our shoulders are reaching up towards our ears. If we've had a stressful day or there's a lot of activity, the energy can move upwards as a generalization. And when we think and we're in our cognitive, there's a tendency to place the location of the mind as being in the brain. If this feels resonant for you, just sense into that experience of the mind existing in the top half of the body, perhaps in the brain, in the head, in the face, where we relate to others every day, reading emotion as well as expressing emotion, communicating. This is where our society operates from in a big way. And the next step that I'm going to offer is to imagine literally taking hold of this mind, of this consciousness that is filling up and inhabiting the space of the head, and just lowering it down into the chest. You might even use your hands to imagine grabbing that mind and placing it into the chest so that the mind now has a new location. And let's take a few breaths here, sending breath to the chest to support that embodiment. Inhabiting the space of the chest through awareness of sensation, both on the surface of the skin, as well as the inner body, the heartbeat. And we can even use a beautiful heart breath from the Heart Math Institute, which involves imagining breathing in and out of the chest center. So imagining almost as if the center of the chest has a pair of nostrils. You are breathing from this space. If it supports you, you might imagine a color being drawn in, being drawn out. And we'll dedicate a few breaths to practicing inhabiting the chest. Notice anything that is alive for you here. Perhaps there's an awareness of emotions that arises when you enter this space. How does the chest perceive this moment? How do you experience this moment from the perspective of the chest and its various receptors to reality? On your next exhale, thanking the chest and moving down into the belly with your felt sense, becoming aware of sensations at the belly, in the belly. And if there's any tension here, we can see what we can do to soften. Perhaps there's a deeper breath that can come through. Or perhaps you can even sense into the pelvis a little bit deeper than the belly. How do you experience this moment from the perspective of the pelvis? What does the pelvis feel and sense? If you broaden this landscape, can you include the belly in that hearing, that listening of the belly. And the belly in particular has a lot of branches of the vagus nerve, which is quite literally one of our superhighways of communication of the nervous system. And it's that inner surveyor, one of the nerves in the body that is surveying the internal landscape as well as the external landscape for any threats, for any information supporting us to survive. We also have our gut feeling, our intuition, and a lot of emotions that can express themselves here at the belly. So let us awaken the intelligence of the belly and the pelvis area. Sending breath there. Inhabiting the front as well as the sides, the back, and the hollow middle, imagining that it's hollow. A full 360 awareness of this space. And to close this sensory awareness practice, I'll invite us to play with spreading our awareness evenly around the body. So we've practiced drawing the awareness down from the head to the heart, to the belly, the pelvis. You could even go further down to the feet if you wanted to play with that. And now we're using that same skill of felt sense, our awareness of sensation, to play with having an even spread of awareness through the body. And what is it like to inhabit the whole body as opposed to being dominant in one part of the body or another? How does it change your experience of this moment? And when you're ready, you can flutter open the eyes. We're actually going to play with the eyes right now, so feel free to change your position, make any adjustments you need to stay comfortable. But the eyes, as I mentioned, have a strong energy about them, and where we direct the energy of the eyes can really influence our brain and our experience. So, for example, if I'm to look straight ahead at something with the vision of an eagle, really straight, in yoga it's often called a drishti, where we look at a point. For example, if we're in Warrior One, for example, and our hands are up above, we'll bring the eyes to the thumbs, for example, or a point straight ahead out on the wall. So that's our drishti, the gaze. Let us play with the drishti for a moment. So find a focal point on the wall, wherever you're looking out in front, and just really focus on that one thing for a moment. What happens to your sense of energy or your mental activity? Just notice. And let's come out of that. Blink the eyes a couple of times, kind of reset yourself. And this time look out in front, but have a wide spread through the peripheries as well. So as opposed to having this one pointed awareness, we're creating a wideness in the lens of our eyes. Maybe we feel the relaxation of the eye muscles, taking in left and right as well as up and down, every direction. An almost spherical vision. Notice how that affects you. And we can let that go. Invitation to squeeze the eyes really, really closed if that's comfortable, and then widening them open, big surprised eyes. And let's even look up and just have an experience of looking up and around. How does it feel to look around you, to really orient in the room and the space around you? After being quite internal, looking at the inner body, take in some colors, notice a few specific objects, and how this experience with the eyes changes how you feel on the inside when you're more visually connected to your environment. And you can bring that to rest. So the last thing I'll say on the eyes for now is that when we're in a stress response or we're very focused, when more of that sympathetic nervous system energy is active, we can get that kind of like eagle vision, like pinpoint precision and focus. It's almost like we're a hunter and we're honing in on the prey. And from an evolutionary perspective, this makes sense because it can help us see further. We're not distracted by external things when we need to shoot that arrow at a very precise location. But this is sympathetic nervous system energy. So it's more of that activation, be it in a positive experience that feels good or one that feels a bit more negative, such as anxiety. And that can be an experience of tunnel vision, when we can only fixate on a negative thought, for example, and it's kind of like this spiral where we can't get perspective. Whereas when we have the eyes wide open with that peripheral vision, from an evolutionary perspective, that's more conducive to being safe at home. And if we think of it as being in community in the village, you know, we might be cooking or attending a fire, but we can see in the peripheral vision that the baby's over there and that they're safe. Or, you know, we can see if the livestock go missing. Or maybe we're in a circle with people, and although we're talking to one person directly, we're in a circular experience of relationship when the eyes are softer and open to the edges of the environment. So that's just one way that we can quite literally have a different emotional or mindset experience with simple shifts in our eyes and where our awareness is inhabiting in our body. Great. So from here, what we'll move on to, I have my notes. Let's come to standing. If we were in a class, I'd do something yummy where we get to kind of move in a circular way and flow like water up to standing. And you can, of course, do that if you like, but let's just comfortably make our way up to standing. And take a stance between the feet that's slightly wider than hip width apart, or wherever you feel balanced really. But I'm going to invite softness in the knees. So there's a little bend there. And bring the weight into the heels. And then as you bring the weight into the heels and get comfortable here, making whatever adjustments you need to, can you send the awareness and the weight into the back of the legs, the buttocks, the back of the back of the neck, and the back of the head, and really rest your whole being in the back body, as if you're sitting into the comfortable chair of the back body. And you can look out straight ahead if that supports you, or you can even close your eyes if you're not at risk of falling backwards. And just take a moment to experience the moment from the perspective of the back body. How does it feel to inhabit the back body as a dominant perspective? Really rest yourself back between the shoulder blades as if you're sitting in a wall of the heart at the back, resting into the support there. Maybe you want to try walking around a little bit from the back body. And this can look very silly, but it can be really interesting as well. How do you move in the world when you're operating from the back body? And play with that for another breath, and when you feel ready, you can shake that off, kind of reset yourself physically, clean slate. And come back to your neutral position, soft knees, and shift the weight into the balls of the feet. And when you feel comfortable with that weight bearing, shifting awareness into the tops of the feet, the shins, the fronts of the knees, the fronts of the thighs, the front of the pelvis, belly, the front of the chest, the throat, and the face. Perhaps you bring in a little bit of forward head posture there, and experience who you are when the majority of the weight is in the front body, this coming forward, this right up at the surface sensation through the face, through the eyes. Who are you when you're inhabiting the front body? How does it feel? Maybe it feels familiar. I know for me, I can live a lot of my life in the front body and have a walk around. I'm kind of squatting so that I fit in the frame of the video here, but let this manifest naturally for you. Who are you when you're letting the front of your body lead? How does it feel? And when you're ready, shake that off. And come back to your neutral. And this time, let us inhabit the sides of our body, allowing ourselves to spread out from the central column, the midline, spreading the awareness out. And perhaps it helps to open the arms so you get that energy through the armpits and the waists of the body. Spread your energy as far left and far right as you possibly can. You can even walk around like this for a little moment, taking in the world with the side body as one big ear, as one big receptor for reality, whose channel is turned up more than the other senses. I'll have to find the source of this to quote under this video, but I heard that as an embryo, we have gills at one point, and that this is an evolutionary leftover marker from when we were fish. And not only do gills support fish to breathe, obviously, underwater, but something, I'll find the quote, but something about there being receptors on the sides of their body that allow them to be so in tune with the other fish in the school of fish, and that's why they can move in schools with absolute accuracy with one another, because they're so tuned in to the group through the sides. And something I think about is the modern way that this expresses in my life is in traffic. When I'm on a big road and I feel really connected to all the other drivers, and we're letting people in or overtaking naturally when we need to. And it's that side intelligence, being able to walk as a group forward and move in unison. All right, you can shake that out whenever you feel. And last one I'm going to offer for this video is moving between contraction and expansion. So let's make ourselves really small. Bring everything into the midline, tuck the throat, the chin in. How does it feel to be small? And then let's make ourselves really big. Be a big star, take up space, maybe look around the room, have a big smile. Don't be afraid to be big. And maybe one feels more natural or comfortable for you right now. Maybe one feels more familiar, like you spend a lot of time there. Let's come back to the midline. Drawing everything in. And then making yourself big. One might feel a bit more conducive to extroversion, another to introversion. And I know for myself, I operate on quite an equal spectrum of both of these energies. There's a part of me that's incredibly expressive, and then there's a part of me that's really internal. So I feel like I inhabit both of these spaces a lot. To finish, let's bring on a smile. Big smile, one of our most easy ways to see the biofeedback, the relationship between body and mind, how our gesture, how our embodiment can affect our physiology and our emotions. The mind-body connection is through smiling. And a smile can feel like a bit of a stretch at times. That's totally natural. But generally, if there's a smile, there'll be a lift of energy. You feel for yourself if that's true. Perhaps there's a brightness. What happens for you when you smile? And there might be a difference between the smile with the eyes closed and the eyes open. Beautiful. Bring yourself back to neutral, whatever that looks like. And our last little practice is something that I kind of call containment pats. I don't know if it was a thing before I started doing it, but that's the name I have for it. And since we're talking about bringing presence and movement into different body parts and letting that affect how we feel, I want to invite us to bring our energy into our palms. The palms have a lot of nerve endings compared to other parts of the body, so it can be relatively easy to inhabit the hands. And we're just going to bring the hands to the body. So let's bring them up to the face, holding the face in the hands. And send your presence through the hands into the face. And I just gently start to tap, or pat rather, every part of the body, sending presence there. So one way that we can support embodiment is through touch as well. It might be touch from another. Maybe we go get a massage. We can also support our embodiment and our skill to bring presence to different parts of the body and awaken intelligence of different parts of the body through our own touch. But not just any touch. It's not brushing my hair in a rush touch. It's not scrubbing soap all over me before dinner in the shower touch, unless you do that in a really beautiful, sensual way. But really bringing presence in your touch. So there's a projective nature through the touch of the hand. We're giving presence. And then there's another layer that we can go to, which is the layer of receptivity of the part of the body being touched. And this is another sub-skill of embodiment, being receptive. So giving the presence through the hands. And something I like to offer is to really make a point of visiting parts of the body that you might unconsciously or otherwise accidentally ignore or skip over. Maybe there's parts of the body that you don't come into contact with very often. I made quite a funny joke the other day in class of a story where I spent a good 5 minutes practicing inhabiting my buttocks, because they're not a part of my body that I feel like I'm very conscious of often. And the more I practiced, the more I was like, wow, I really like being in my butt. And I'm saying this because it makes it, light and funny, and we don't have to take it all too seriously, but it's real. I felt like a different part of me when I was embodied in that space, inhabiting that space. And I said to the class, I like butt, Gigi. And everyone laughed. So maybe you'll get a laugh with that as well. Sending our presence, finishing that up. And then I'll just do a few sweeps to bring the energy downwards. We're moving back down towards the floor. You might kind of metaphorically wash your face with your presence, with touch. And however feels right for you, making your way down to either seated or perhaps you come lying down to finish this practice. I invite a few in-breaths through the nose, exhales out the mouth. And I know for myself, when I exhale out the mouth, I feel a downward moving energy, a release, a softening of the belly, perhaps through the pelvis and down through the legs as well. And if that doesn't feel like the right thing for you, if you feel like already a bit heavy or more dominant in the lower body, something you could do is take 2 sips of breath in, which brings the energy up a little bit and then relaxes. So once again, you breathe in the way that feels right for you. Everything that I'm offering is, evidence-based but contextual. So you might want to have a play of whether you want to have a few exhales out the mouth. If you feel like coming down into the lower body could be helpful, or if you feel like coming into the upper body could be helpful, you might focus a bit on the inhale. I'm going to complete the practice there. If there's a gesture of honoring that supports you to close this practice for yourself, or you have a little ritual that you like to bring in, there's an opportunity to do that now. And as always, sending sincere thanks or some loving words to the body and to the part of you that decided to take on this practice today, the hopes that it had for you. I hope you enjoyed that experience and exploration of embodiment. Yeah, I'll see you in the next video.